Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Empower Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Manos. Today, I have two very special guests, brothers Seth and Ray Miller. They're also Jiu Jitsu black belts. They own the Jiu Jitsu academy that I go to. So, if you guys don't mind, can you just give a quick introduction about your athletic background, how you got into Jiu Jitsu, and then can you tell us about your business, please?
Sure. So we own Spectrum Jiu Jitsu in Kearneysville, West Virginia. We're both black belts under Daniel Gracie. We started uh, training in martial arts probably close to 20 years ago now. Um, Honestly, the thing that got us into it was playing video games, specifically Metal Gear Solid 3. We wanted to do like hand to hand combat stuff. And so our mom found like a traditional martial arts school that we started with, and they did some grappling within that and kickboxing and striking and all that. In 2015, when I graduated from college, we decided to start our own gym. And when we first started, it was just like a mixed martial arts gym. Um, so we weren't specifically jujitsu or anything like that. Around 2021 is when we switched over to being Spectrum Jiu Jitsu. So full, just pure jujitsu gym. That was our main focus. Um, and so since then, we've obviously gotten our black belts. We got our black belts just a couple weeks ago. So it's been
Mhm.
a super exciting adventure over these last 10 years because we had our 10th anniversary in August.
I'll
That's
add
awesome.
another big part of this journey was we were both trained as educators. So
Okay.
I was actually a school teacher for 7 years, and Ray went to school similarly for elementary education. Um, and like in my third or fourth year of teaching, I was like, Ray, we got to figure something else out. Like this is really, really difficult. And specifically working in the public school system was extremely challenging and it wasn't fulfilling in the way that I was hoping for. So
Mhm.
Ray and I kind of took our skills at teaching in a classroom and brought it onto the mats.
It's interesting you say that because I was a college soccer player, and then when I graduated, I wanted to become a coach, and I enjoyed coaching high school. I found that the parents weren't overly involved, and the kids wanted to be there, but then I got that doesn't pay anything, so I went into club coaching, which also doesn't pay very much. And I was working with a lot of kids who didn't really want to be there, and the parents kind of forced them to be there on a cold, November morning when they would rather be sleeping in or playing video games or something like that. And the parents were spending a lot of money and had all these big expectations. And so I was like, I love the sport, but I just don't love this side of it. But I loved coaching. So I thought, how can I still stay in the realm of coaching? Personal training and kind of like performance coaching, working with athletes and all that was kind of like an adjacent but similar thing. So I was gonna ask actually, you guys do such a great job educating. I've watched some of your YouTube videos even from many years ago. Um, I'm sure that your education background comes into that. I remember you used the term pedagogy. Did I pronounce that correctly? You're talking about using pedagogy, and you're also an ecological jiu-jitsu gym. Can you explain your teaching style and how that's, been impacted by your backgrounds in education?
Yeah, so I think the main part of the education background deals with classroom management, especially when it
Mhm,
comes to the kids' classes, because that was our specialty was elementary education. So having that knowledge and that background has really assisted us in building a pretty sizable kids program.
mhm,
I think that's one thing that really differentiates us from other gyms is the fact that a lot of our focus, especially in the beginning, was on our youth program, just because we kind of wanted to plant those seeds and build that foundation of growing these students into long lasting members of the gym. And the environment that we try to cultivate in the kids program, but also in the adult program as well, is mainly focused on just skill development. Right, that's our goal. Right, we're not in there trying to have people, do CrossFit workouts. We're not in there having people, trying to have them do things that aren't related to jujitsu. That's
mhm,
always been our main goal. We've really tried to like take out things that aren't necessary, with things that we don't feel are super necessary, that you might see in like more traditional jujitsu gyms, and just really laser focus into what's the best way to get good fast.
mhm,
Not that they are necessary, but that people should do those things on their own time. And
mhm,
we should specialize in what people are here to do. So rather than doing like vigorous workouts, which are definitely good for your jujitsu, it's something that you can get a better resource for elsewhere. Whereas what we
mhm,
provide, we try to focus on 100% so that
mhm.
people can really specialize with their time. And,
Mhm,
I would say like every coach has their own way of teaching. So like an ecological approach has been like a new thing we've been experimenting with. And like I personally do like 50% ecological, 50% technique based instruction. And I think it's good to give students different tastes of instruction styles. So different coaches will pace things differently. Different coaches will focus on different areas. And so that's something also that we wanted to offer people was different looks at instruction.
if you were to describe ecological to somebody who's never, um they don't know what the word means or how it applies to jujitsu, how would you do that?
It is just the idea that you get better at what you love by doing what you love. That's the easiest way to think about it, right?
Mhm,
You interact with the people in your environment for the goal of getting better at the sport or the task that you're trying to accomplish, right? And the best way to do that is by just doing that task, right? So instead of shrimping up and down the mat, which isn't that directly related to a grappling match, right? We're going to
mhm,
put people in a scenario where they get to practice the actual skills and systems that are needed to develop their grappling.
mhm. I would say that, it's kinda like a constraint-led approach. For anyone who doesn't know, if you were to give an example, you've done somewhere, it's you start from a certain position, and you have win states. So it might be someone starts, chest to back, and then you say you have to escape, or the other person is hold on as long as possible. You have all sorts of different games like that. In my profession specifically, I find that, there's 3 main kinda learning styles. It's auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. Visual is the easiest, you just demo once, and then people kinda pick it up. Auditory, you kinda have to learn to speak their language, and I was gonna get into this with you guys specifically. And then kinesthetic, I find is a very challenging thing, but then you find ways to use actual constraints. If you want someone to squat to a certain depth, for example, you put a little box underneath them. You say, "Make your butt touch the box every single time," and it kinda simplifies as opposed to saying, "Do what I do," or you tell them 2 inches lower.
That's the one that
Um,
I need help on, man. My squat's terrible, so you got to
yeah,
help me out with that.
I can help you with that. But I was gonna say, you guys teach so many different ages, so many different backgrounds. You do one-on-one sessions, you also do group sessions. Um, how do you balance out teaching? I find that it's hard to describe. I've done different martial arts as well. Muay Thai, for example. It's easier visually for me to see someone do something Muay Thai and then do it, but then with Jiu-Jitsu, I find it's like a puzzle. I see you guys doing this, I try to tell myself, "Oh, they're doing this step, this hand goes there," all that stuff, then you actually have to do it, and it very much is a feel-based, martial arts. I imagine kinesthetic is very important for you guys, but you still have to demonstrate to a group with auditory and visual cues. So how do you guys kinda balance that out?
I mean, yeah, people don't know what their bodies are capable of until they actually see it, right? So, we need to be able to demonstrate what we're asking people to do first, right?
Mhm,
As opposed to just having them go figure it out on their own, right? That's not something that people can do. So we need to show them what's possible with their body,
mhm,
and then we'll put them in that position and have them work from there, right? I think that oftentimes coaches we tend to get a little bit like overly excited with sort of sharing what we know, but the sort of like that the Dunning Kruger effect where having so much expertise about a topic often blinds you from realizing that people often don't know what you're talking about, right? So
mhm,
trying to meet them where their skill level might be is really important. And an interesting analogy that I've heard is like when you're teaching and when you're coaching, details and the little nitty gritty things that we think might be really really interesting is like salt that you would use when you're seasoning a meal, right? And of course, salt is important when you're seasoning a meal, but you can't have a plate of salt and just give it to somebody to eat, right? You have to be able to give them the meat and potatoes, give a little bit of seasoning here and there, and then let them kind of feast on it and then grow. And then they learn things. And then they also gain new things that they want to learn more about, right?
mhm,
I I personally use eco games um, to kind of present a problem and create necessity and give people something to think about, and then I give them possible solutions to the problem that I
mhm,
just gave to them. So giving them a
mhm,
situation or position to work with, giving them some constraints and some win states so that they have general goals, and then giving them specific ways to meet those goals. I found that to be a really effective way because then you're getting, both the gross motor skills of like a very basic position and then you're getting more fine-tuned techniques and some best practices, then you can plug back into that game after you get to see them and hear about them.
It made me smile when you said that because I know what it's like to start off without getting those, solutions that you provide, and there's times where I just feel like I'm, stuck. I'm trying all these different things I can't figure out. I'm like, "Man, I can't wait till he tells me the solution, and then I can actually implement it and try it out." But it is
It's
fun to
it's kind of like
yeah.
like making a sale, like selling something. You
Mhm,
you give them a problem, you talk around the thing, and
mhm,
then people become more interested and more hungry for the solution or the product. And it's not
mhm,
that, we're trying to fleece people of anything because we do deliver every single time, but
mhm,
um, when you make a learner hungry to learn and understand why you need to learn something,
mhm.
the information absorbs a lot quicker.
I like that. When I was a soccer coach and I was getting my coaching badges, during one of the courses, I was talking to the players and I was asking them a lot of questions. And the coaches who were, teaching the course were saying, "Oh, I think it's a little bit too open ended. You're giving these guys too much freedom to think and this, that, the other. You're supposed to lead them with your questions." And it felt like they wanted me to talk to them like I was a lawyer trying to lead them as opposed to leaving it open-ended and creating that kind of curiosity like you're discussing. You can lead them once they kinda get thinking on their own, but I just felt it was weird that they said I was thinking too much like a player, not enough like a coach. Sometimes I feel like you can kinda get taught bad habits along in your profession and all that. I found that when I did actually make it, at least when I was a team coach, uh, try to get them involved as much as possible, it kind of became their team, and they kinda took more ownership of their own sport, and you actually saw them communicate better on the field and all that stuff, so it's kind of interesting how some people would rather just say, "No," you tell them right away what the answer is, but then you can also, like you guys do, kinda create the like you say, the curiosity in the first place, let someone try to figure it out for themselves, and then you can give them the answer. And my favorite thing when I was a soccer coach is when someone would come up with a solution I hadn't thought of, and it was still effective, and I'm curious if you guys come across that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the kids' classes, it's really interesting to see because they'll do stuff that I never would have thought of, but if it works, right? That's what I often tell people is there's no one size fits all. There's no plug and play system that works for everybody because everybody's body type is different. Everybody has different physical attributes that lead to different outcomes. So, I tell people as long as you're accomplishing the task, as long as you're doing what your goal is, and generally the goal is to win, right? Whether it's do a submission, whatever it is, like, pass the guard, whatever. As long as you're able to accomplish that task, who are we to say, well, you didn't do it just like this, so how dare you, right? Because you did it, right? That's what we
Mm,
asked you to
mhm,
do. You accomplished the task. If you did it a little bit differently than Johnny over there, then that's great. That's beautiful. That's why it's an art, right?
mhm. I think, jujitsu as well is, to me, an interesting sport because if you look at boxing or kickboxing, it seems fairly simple on the surface. There's only so many, techniques. You have to master it, of course, and then there's strategy and all that. But jujitsu feels like there's a million techniques, and it's hard to almost, like, conceptually create a map of these things, and, I'm not even the best right now. I've only been doing it for about a year. I'm still a white belt. And you don't notice when you go against the same people if you're getting any better until a new person comes into the class. And then you get them with something that they don't know even exists. You're setting up like an Americana, and they're just waiting there while you hook up the submission because they don't know what's about to happen. And I just think it's kind of interesting like that. So I find that I've learned a lot just from getting submitted a bunch, or just by seeing the traps that I fall into with other people.
Yeah, yeah. Ray and I did a little bit of striking. Well, I mean, like we did striking stuff for like 8 years or so, honestly, with our traditional martial arts background. And yeah, like you said, there's a smaller number of techniques.
Mhm,
Um, and I would say like a smaller number of variables, but there's a higher um requirement for perfection in those techniques and like specificity in those techniques. Like there is absolutely like a few good ways to throw a punch and everything else is garbage, but someone could get lucky and accidentally throw a good punch
mhm,
because you fundamentally understand that you're just throwing your fist or your elbow or your limb at something. And if you can hit it in the right way, you got
mhm.
lucky and you can maybe score a knockout or you can rock somebody. But it's very hard to accidentally do jujitsu. there's only like a few things that people accidentally do, grabbing heads and necks and stuff like that. But like to be actually able to control someone without exhausting yourself, it takes very specific things that people don't naturally do. So it
Mhm,
is definitely a different beast. It's less intuitive, I think is the
mhm,
best way to put it. And so yeah, we definitely Ray and I definitely noticed that, which is part of the reason we kind of ended up transitioning the academy to jiu-jitsu, because it was just something totally foreign for us, and as both coaches and learners, that was an attractive concept. That it was like this
mhm,
um, huge, open, very technical thing that we could dive deeply into.
mhm. I think it's interesting that you say that. I never considered the fact that you can get, quote unquote lucky in striking, for example. You could throw like a wild overhand, catch someone on the chin, but I've never considered the fact that no one like randomly ends up in
Triangle
I don't know,
choke.
in like a Kimura or triangle or exactly, yeah, that just like that doesn't really happen. But then I do think it's interesting too how there is some sort of like a natural animalistic thing to grappling in general, not even just humans.
Yeah.
Um, but you
It's
see
the
like,
oldest sport
people
in the
wrestle
world, right?
bears. Yeah, but you see people wrestling bears and like I grapple with my dog. He's a German Shepherd and he's got better technique than I do. He creates frames and like the jumping and all that stuff.
Yep.
So I think that is kind of fun. I was gonna ask you, you guys recently got your black belts. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you could go back to your white belt selves, is there any piece of advice that you guys would share?
Hmm. I would say to white belt Ray to maybe, well, okay, two things. So one is jujitsu related, one is not jujitsu, like kind of
Kind of.
tangentially related. Uh, Semi related, I would say focus on physical fitness more
Yeah, that
as
would be
at
mine.
the white belt stage. Yeah, I think that's a big one that a lot of people really don't put enough focus on.
Which
Because I only really,
a lot of people think that Ray and I don't believe in that because we don't do warm ups. But Ray and I
Mm,
do believe in that. We just believe that if you're paying us to learn jujitsu, we should teach you specifically jujitsu for as much
mhm,
time as we have you. So,
mhm,
to everyone who's watching, we do believe in physical fitness. Ray and I work out. We hope our students work out and stretch and stuff like that. But the physical fitness you're going to get from our classes is all going to be revolving around the jujitsu itself. But yeah,
mhm,
if I were to talk to myself as a white belt, I would say start lifting weights earlier.
yeah, don't you? We're not professionals in that regard. I would point somebody towards your direction, Matt, if that was something they're interested in doing. When it
mhm,
comes to jujitsu, though, um, I would probably tell white belt Ray to not worry about and not focus on like uh the flashy stuff that doesn't matter, you know? And I don't really like using the word like fundamentals or like the basics because what is basic? Who's to say what's basic and what's not? I think,
mhm,
you know, grappling in general is nothing but fundamentals, right? Essentially. But I would say that at white belt, I was trying to emulate certain types of jujitsu that just weren't for my body type. Like a big inspiration in the beginning for me was like Marcelo Garcia, but that guy was like, he still is, he's still with us. Thank goodness he beat cancer, so that's cool. But he's like 5'7" and he's like built like a tree trunk. So I'm like, why was I trying to emulate his style? Like, a lot of butterfly guard and stuff like that. And also just like I was trying to do stand up, but it was just like an ugly amalgamation of like judo that I didn't know. And then like I was slow at developing my guard and stuff. So I don't know. There's just a lot of like little details and little technical aspects that I probably would have told white belt Ray. Because looking back, I didn't compete until I was a blue belt, so I don't actually have like any footage of white belt Ray. The only
mhm,
footage that I have is me rolling with one of our good friends, me and Seth. His name is CR. Shout out to CR because he was a huge inspiration for us. But it was a video of me and him rolling at the back of a Gold's Gym in Martinsburg. And it was like a December night, and we were just in the back on these disgusting mats back there. This was before we opened the gym, and we were grappling. And then, when I look back at that video, I'm like, dude, this guy sucks at jujitsu.
And then what about you, Seth? Same thing? Is it, I know
Yeah,
you mentioned the
like
physical fitness.
um, probably. I mean, the working out thing would be huge. Ray and I were never that fit, like athletic growing up, and jujitsu is kind of looked at as like, well, a little guy can beat a bigger guy, and that is
Mhm,
true. But if both people have the same skill level, the stronger guy is always going to win. So if I were to, go back, yeah, I realized that eventually, right around purple belt. But if I could go back, I would tell myself to, you need to be stronger, just in general, not only to be better at jujitsu, but for injury prevention.
mhm,
Um, because I have like neck issues from like roughhousing with like jujitsu adjacent stuff when I was younger.
mhm,
So if I could tell myself, if you build up muscle around these injuries and you focus on, stability in these areas, you can really save yourself a lot of pain. I think that I would probably compete more often, and I think that I probably would excel a little bit faster. Um, as far as like jujitsu technique wise, I would probably tell
I
my
know.
I would probably tell myself to not accept bottom position. Something that like it took me a while to realize, and I think I finally realized this like late into blue belt, early in purple belt,
mhm,
was just like you can just say no to being down and just get back up
mhm,
way
mhm,
more often than you would think. And so like that's something that was one of the first things I tried to tell people in jujitsu. Like if I'm doing like private classes with people, I often break things down into simple tenets. And examples of those would be like just do not go into close guard, just say no to close guard and just get back up.
mhm.
Just like ask yourself, can I get up? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, probably do it. And like a lot of the times that serves people, especially early on in jujitsu, because like these like simple pieces of advice um, are sometimes more helpful than knowing a specific move.
Mhm. Well, so
I
I find
think.
it interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like on the technical aspect too of what I would have told White Belt Ray is to get on the leg locks train far earlier because back in 2015 when we started the gym, leg locks were still like in their infancy, really, and
Mhm.
so jumping on that meta would have been very beneficial.
Oh, yeah, I kinda wanna go off those things. You were talking about not accepting bottom position, and it's interesting you say that because at the open mat, this past Sunday or the one before that I went to, on the final round, I won't name names just to, save people their identity and all that stuff, but, like, there's a lot of wrestlers that go there, and I already know that, like, if you're a purple belt and you're a wrestler, you're gonna beat me. Like, however you want, you're gonna beat me. One of them was saying he knows that I do, like, MMA as well. You guys suggested, working with Coach Carlos across the street, and, it's interesting to see jujitsu in 2 different contexts. One where kinda anything goes, you can slam and you can strike, and then one where there's, different rules where playing guard can be a little bit safer.
Mhm.
Um, but he was saying that, like, he wanted to teach me the unnamed purple belt, who I really like, was saying he wanted to teach me, anti-jujitsu, so, like, just stand up like you're talking about. So he said, "We got a 5-minute round. If you can get up and create separation from me where I have 0 contact with you 4 times in the 5 minutes, you win." And I only did it once. I stood up maybe 4 times, but I didn't create that full separation where, in theory, in, like, an MMA context, I could go back to striking,
Hmm.
or in a self-defense situation, I could run away if I needed to. And I just found that really interesting because it was the same thing where sometimes people look too much to submit from their back or to sweep, and, yeah, there is that option like you're talking about of just standing up and resetting. And that's what I think is kinda interesting about jujitsu too. You're talking about learning techniques or emulating different people. I've been trying to do a bit of everything. I've done the, no-gi takedown classes that you guys had. Um, I've done the gi, I've done the no-gi. I've tried being a little bit more on my feet. I've tried being a little bit more on top, trying to be more on the bottom, um, just to understand all the different areas and see what am I good at, what works for my game and all that. But then you also have to think, what am I learning it for? Um, the main reason why I got into this was like self-defense. And then also I'm a personal trainer. It's cool to see how to move in different ways. And being so comfortable on the ground was like foreign to me as a soccer player. You try to get up as quick as you can. Um, so yeah, I find it to be a really interesting venture. Um, and I urge other people to get into it as well. But yeah, my main reason is self-defense, and then, um, Ray knows, I don't know if you know, Seth, but my wife is due at the end of the month,
Oh, wow.
with our first yeah, with our first
Congratulations.
kid. Thank you. We're having a boy. At the MMA gym, they're saying, like, "Why do you do this? You don't compete. You're 28 years old," you know? Everybody here is, like at least the MMA gym, they're all, like, 18. They're like, "What's your deal? You just wanna be super dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wanna be super dad. I wanna be a good example to my kid, and I wanna be able to protect my family." Not that, like, I'm looking for trouble, but, you know, you never know. It's a crazy world. Things can
And
happen,
it's fun.
and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
It's a big part.
it's interesting it's interesting too because I snapped my MCL in my 2nd session ever. I don't know if you actually saw when it happened, Ray. You were nearby.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um
yeah, I did.
So, um, like, I have clients who are like, "Why do you do this? Like, you just get hurt, this, that, the other." I think I tried saying that, competing in soccer to me is about as dangerous as training martial arts. I think competing in martial arts would be more dangerous. Um, but I think there's at least some level of, like, control, especially in the jiu-jitsu gym. Like, there's this trust that people aren't really gonna try to hurt you. Um, or when we're sparring in the MMA gym, people aren't trying to knock you out. They're gonna clip you, but they're not gonna, like, really try to injure you. I feel like in competition, it might be a little bit more dangerous in that sense, especially in MMA. Um, but in soccer, I mean, like I've had surgeries from soccer. You know, I've seen people go up for a header, get taken out at the legs and fall on their neck, and I thought like they were paralyzed or dead or something. So it was
Yeah.
still a violent sport in its own way. Sports are chaotic, and kind of
Yeah.
injuries are part of life. So you can't fear it.
Um, well, I mean, every time this topic comes up, I mean, it comes up a lot because people look at jujitsu, they think it's pretty violent, and it can be violent. Um, but if you train at the right places, injuries are going to be lower rate because people have a mutual understanding. And I also always tell people like, well, it's something that will cause you to exercise. It will cause you to become more fit. And if it captures your interest, the alternative to not doing it is just vegging out on a couch, which
Mhm,
which seems like safe because you're not getting injured, but you are damaging your body by not doing anything. And so
mhm,
like I always say like, well, if I were to look back 10 years ago and I never started really focusing in on jujitsu, I maybe would have had a couple less injuries over the years, but I would be overall a lot less physically fit and healthy.
mhm,
And so, like any use of your body is going to damage your body, but also
mhm,
misuse or not using your body and just being derelict also will injure your body. Like people get back injuries from just sitting at an office chair for too long.
easy.
Like
Yeah.
that happens a lot. So yeah, you can injure yourself doing jujitsu, but you can injure yourself living life and just doing nothing too.
Mhm.
So like I'd rather be healthy and feel good and do something that I love and learn.
There's that saying, "Choose your hard." You can be, wealthy by, you know, saving and investing, or you can be poor by spending your money, poorly. They're both hard, you know, making money, but also just throwing it away. Choose your hard. The same with, like, being fit versus being out of shape. You know, being fit isn't the easiest, going through that kind of stress that you choose, but then also, feeling tired all the time going up the stairs or, you know, throwing your back out if you sneeze, that kind of concept. I think it's interesting you say that because, life is stress, and you can't really avoid stress. You can adapt to stress, and the idea there is to have the right amount of stress that you actually grow and become more resilient and more prepared for what life throws at you. An example with the barbell is if you guys have never squatted before, maybe you start with just, the bar, you start with the 45 on either side. If I put 400 pounds on your back and I don't put safeties, the bar's gonna crush you. That's way too much stress, and that's negligent, and that's dangerous. But then if, you know, you just start at 135, you go 155, 175, whatever, until you build up to 400 pounds, you're a different person by the time that you can actually squat 400 pounds. And you're gonna be a lot safer in almost any instance. Um, than someone who avoids stress altogether. So
Yeah.
I kinda like that concept, and it's the same thing
And
you guys say too, you can pick your training partners, and you also say tap early, tap often, so it's not like right away you're rolling with black belts who are trying to rip your head off.
yeah, and then also like an equivalent for weightlifting would be seeing someone squat 400 pounds and someone look at that and be like, wow, that's so dangerous. If I did that, I would get crushed and it would like
Mhm,
kill me. But like, you're not seeing everything that led up to that point.
Mhm.
So when people see jujitsu and it's violent looking and there's lots of thrashing and rolling and moving and there's a choke happening and the guy's face is turning red, yeah, it is dangerous in a way, but there's a lot of stuff that led up to that point where they prepared themselves physically for that. And so it's not as dangerous as it may seem initially.
If we can get a little bit into the more philosophical or spiritual, emotional side of jujitsu real quick, I don't know how else to describe it. You went through a journey technically and physically to get your black belt, but I imagine you also grew as people and learned a lot of lessons along the way. Is there a major lesson you learned along the way or major, like, kind of moment that sticks out in your mind?
Uh, Lessons, I would say just keeping your head down, staying focused on being professional, staying focused on being positive, and staying focused on building a community of people that work together for a goal and a common purpose. I think that's what's important. You know, our ethos in the beginning was on providing something for our community that we thought was missing, providing an outlet for youths, for adults that we feel would be beneficial. Um, it's hard to pinpoint any particular, single event or instance that really brought us to this point. You know, it was a culmination of so many people, so many mentors, so many coaches that we got the chance to work with. And we really were an amalgamation of all of these experiences, and we really appreciate everyone who's stepped into our lives, right? All of our students, both past, present, they've really molded who we are as people, and they've really given us the opportunity to grow and help other people grow in return. And I think that's what's most important is this sort of cycle of growth for everyone, right? And that's what our hope is at the gym, is to just provide a safe, healthy outlet for these people to come in and develop a new fun hobby.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is kind of it's a solo sport. It's an individual sport because it's a combat sport, of course. But even more so than a lot of other types of training that are solo, like swimming or something like that, you're not bouncing off of another person at all times. Um, so jujitsu is kind of like personally intimate in that way where you like are around people and talking to people and working with people and relying on people a lot, which can lead to lots of good feelings, lots of great relationships that you can build. But it can also lead to encounters with people that maybe aren't what they seem at first or have bad egos or things like that. And that's something that Ray and I have had to learn to deal with as we proceed forward. He mentioned keeping your head down and just pressing on, and that's something that Ray and I have had to do a lot over those 10 years. And you get a lot of uplifting moments of professors or coaches that are really there for you, lift you up, and are great resources of like not just technique, but just like encouraging words. And then you also have moments of upper belts and people who you've trained, people who you've spent sweat and blood on to try to help improve, who kind of fall short of what you expected. And so, you know, there's been many times where Ray and I just have to just put our head back down and grind ahead despite what happens with interpersonal relationships. Um, you know, jujitsu, unfortunately, is kind of like a tribal thing to some people. Um, and it took Ray and I a little while to understand this kind of like weird gang mentality that some people have where like, oh, I train here, I don't train over here, and like I mess with these people, I don't mess with that people, or if you teach like that, then I don't like you, and very, I guess it's just because it has this kind of like glue effect with the people that you work with often. Um, some people kind of get more of like a cultish mentality, which is something Ray and I have always tried to avoid at our
Mhm.
academy. Um, but that is something that, we can help try to help our people not fall into. but it can rub off onto um, you as a school or onto your students in negative ways. So Ray and I have had to really learn to not cope with that, but learn to like understand it thoroughly so that we can navigate it.
I think
It's interesting.
the
Or
only thing that really you can control or we can control as jiu-jitsu coaches, as business owners, is the quality of the product that we're offering.
mhm,
Everything else, it it's not really worth our time to worry about, right? You know, what people might be thinking or saying about X, Y, or Z, at the end of the day, what matters is, are we giving the best possible product to our community?
mhm.
You know, everything else doesn't really matter, right? As long as we are happy with the value we're providing, and as long as our students are happy with that, then we're in moving in the right direction.
It's, along the lines of, controlling the controllables. If it's something that's out of your control, why worry about it? Why stress about it? So you guys are saying that you guys can't control every single thing, but you can control how you show up every single day, and what you provide. You're also talking about, like, cultures of gyms and all that stuff. Um, your gym is a really cool place because I've heard some people say you can judge the culture of a gym by the size of their women's classes or their kids' classes. And I mean, you guys have a big mix of everything. You have people joking around, but then it's also not like a super soft area. You have guys like going pretty hard in some of the rounds too. Um, I really like the culture you guys have. You guys are leaders. I don't know if you guys think about it that way or not, or just coaches, but you guys do have leadership responsibilities in setting the culture of your gym. Is that something you focus on intentionally, or is it just one of those things where you show up how you show up and everything
Oh,
else takes care of
absolutely. Yeah, I think, developing a culture is hard, but
it?
it all starts from the top. I mean, the way that we carry ourselves, the professionalism that we always strive to maintain at all times
Mhm,
is what facilitates the environment, right? And I tell people this too. Seth and I facilitate the environment, but
mhm,
it's you guys who fill it, right?
mhm,
So if we're filling it with, you know, personality types that don't mesh well, then we're going to have issues, right? But, if we're filling it with good, healthy personalities, good people, then, you know, we're obviously giving you guys the opportunity to all come together, but it's you guys who fill that and you guys who make the environment what it is.
So, like as an
mhm,
example, Ray and I are very big on having a professional environment and an environment of collaboration and people
mhm,
being treated equally. Some
mhm,
people are just not interested in that. Some people really dig the hierarchy. Some people really dig being able to look down on people or look up to people. And Ray and I don't really do that. And so, it ends up rubbing some people the wrong way. It ends up rubbing some people the right way. Some people like the more democratic approach, where we're just like, hey, I'm interested in your ideas. Are you interested in my ideas? Let's share. Let's collaborate. Let's do better together. Some people want like a strong figure to look up to. They're like, oh, everything is them. We listen to them. That's the thing. And then everything funnels down until it's like, well, white belts are just nothing. Like, like that's kind of the Ray and I kind of look at that as like kind of outdated way of thinking about
mhm,
martial arts. So like that would just be an example of the culture that we were aware of, but we wanted to avoid.
mhm,
We've caught flack for it in the past, but we're no, we have no issue saying that we are by no means fans of traditionalism and the sort of like, you know, diehard traditional aspects of martial arts.
Not to
We
say
still do,
that respect is not important. But
mhm,
of
on the
course. I mean,
contrary, we're saying that respect is paramount for everyone.
mhm,
That's
yeah, when I say traditional aspects, I'm referring to things like, if you show up late to a class, I'm going to make you do push-ups. Like, why? Like, we're adults. Why would I make somebody do push-ups for showing up late? I don't care. Like, as long as you're here and you're happy and you're healthy, then come on in. Let's get to work.
on the other side, we hold ourselves to really high standards. It sounds like, well, it's chill, man. If you're late, it's cool. But on the other side of that, we're also holding ourselves to very high standards where we start class on time every single time. We don't
mhm,
loaf around and like joke around because we know people have schedules, people have places to be. We expect you to be where you need to be when it's time. If you're not, it's okay. Like it's no big deal. You have your life. come in when you can train, right? We want you here to train. And then we also finish his classes on time every time because we know people have lives. If you want to stay behind and chat, that's cool, but we're not going to hold everyone up because, we've
Mhm,
got a running joke going or something like that.
mhm,
Like we want to, we want,
Yeah, if-
we want to have like professionalism on every level. Not to say that we're not friendly, not to say that, things aren't, and we don't have flexibility, like, for example, people coming late to class, but, we want to hold everyone to standards so that it doesn't become like a social club, you know.
mhm. I was gonna ask well, actually, I wanted to speak that a little bit. I know that in some martial arts or some gyms, an example is like a white belt can never ask an upper belt to roll with them. They have to be like picked by the upper belt. You never see a white belt rolling with a black belt. And I think it's interesting. Well, first of all, I don't think you can tell that in no gi. I don't know if you guys just have the ability, and when it's no gi, you're just a bunch of people. But when you have the belts there, I think it's a little bit different in that sense. Um, but I have had the opportunity to roll with different people, and I think that's really cool. Um, I think it's
yeah, I think
nice.
that's such a weird,
Yeah.
antiquated thing. Like, this is a hobby. We're just in here having fun. A black belt is no different from a white belt, right?
Mhm.
We're just people. Let's just, if you want to roll with me, then come on, let's roll. Like, I'm not going
I
to get offended that you want to roll with me. That's
yeah.
silly. If anything, it's a compliment. I'm happy that you want to roll with me.
And
Mhm,
thankfully, I think that that's pretty uncommon nowadays, especially in the United
mhm,
States.
mhm,
I would hope. I've not heard of it happening much recently, um,
mhm.
but you know, different people do different things, and that's fine.
I was gonna ask you guys wear a lot of hats. You guys are, family men. You guys have a business. You guys compete. You guys do all sorts of different things. How do you balance everything?
Carefully.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm very, S- Seth will Seth will agree on this. I'm very uh, regimented and scheduled. I guess I guess you could call me type A or whatever, but I have my routine and I am good at maintaining that. And it's just for my own sanity, right? Because I have so much stuff that I need to keep
Mhm,
in mind that I have to build these routines for myself. And that helps me keep all the ducks in a row. So, I give myself like an hour or so here and there to be able to unwind and sort of uh, relax. And then outside of that is being a dad, being a business owner, and then at the same time trying to find time to pursue my hobbies,
mhm.
of jujitsu or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Seth, what about you?
I mean, it's fortunate that our profession is one of our biggest hobbies as well. So it's not that hard to wear all the hats, and I think that that's probably one of the biggest blessings of owning your own business. On the other side, we're always kind of on call. We're always we take very few vacations as of right now, because we try to have the academy open as
Mhm,
often as possible. Um, and in a way, we work 6 days a week, but also, the hours are a little bit more limited because it's within the hours that the academy are open.
mhm,
So I mean, like, uh, it's and also a lot of the things that I do outside of the academy also kind of fold into that. So like working out almost every day that I can, um, and like a lot of the social media stuff kind of helps funnel towards bettering the academy. Ray's more the social media guy, but um, we've kind of built our lives around it, so it kind of just happens naturally. Um,
mhm,
and by teaching, we're also training in a way. Um,
mhm.
and a lot of people don't understand that some people learn best by teaching, and I think that Ray and I are fortunate to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're
I was
essentially self-taught because, we've had coaches and things like that over the years, but a majority of our exposure to jiu-jitsu and then also our development in jiu-jitsu has just been me and Seth developing our skills outside of the gym and then coming back and teaching inside the gym.
mhm,
And I know that I suppose that could be a controversial thing, but we've had mentors who have guided us, but the the sort of development of our skill set has been very personally driven, right? We're
Mhm.
autodidacts, if you want to use a fancy word.
So that's essentially what my career has been is, once I left coaching, I had one internship in strength and conditioning, and then from there, I, moved back home. I was in Cincinnati at the time. I moved back home. COVID, nobody was hiring, and I was like, "Well, I need to make money." So I just started my own business. I had some adjustable dumbbells I could throw in the trunk, drive to people's homes when all the gyms are closed, and I just started training people out of their spaces there, but I don't
That's
really
awesome.
have a specific mentor in this space. Social media has actually been really great for me because I've been able to connect with a lot of people and learn off them. But yeah, it's just going to be, courses and books and podcasts and all these different things and just self education. And there's something to it. I actually find that it's powerful to kind of think of like Goodwill Hunting, for example, is a pretty smart cookie with the library pass. So
Yeah.
yeah. I was going to ask as well, why should somebody get into jujitsu? If someone's scared to get started, what's kind of your sales pitch?
Well, number one, it's fun. Number
Uh-huh.
two, you get to bond with a great community. You get to, as adults especially, we often look for ways to connect with other people, right? It becomes harder and harder as you get older to like find groups of people that you can hang out with, right? But what also becomes more and more or less and less common as you become an adult is the idea of getting to play and just have fun with a game, right? As kids, we're always allowed to play, we're allowed to experiment, we're allowed to have fun with certain things, but as we become adults, things have to become very serious. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about jujitsu is that it's a game and you're encouraged to play and explore and really stretch your mind in that way. But also at the same time, you're developing those healthy habits, you're developing your body. And then the psychological aspect, I think that's really important for adults and for kids, especially too, is that you're putting yourself in a high stress situation that there are stakes, but it's not life altering stakes. You're going to be okay regardless of what happens, but you're still putting that sort of pressure on yourself and you're forcing yourself to solve problems so that when you encounter problems in life, while there's no direct analog between like escaping from side control and having to pay your taxes, it's still like, oh man, you know what? I I was stuck in a triangle for 5 minutes last night. I'll be okay with having to walk to the store because my car broke down. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of adults aren't given enough of these problems to solve in a healthy, controlled environment. And I think that's what jujitsu allows you to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't present itself in that way where you're like, well, there was that triangle last night. I can handle this. It's more like just um you start to develop a certain type of grit from doing something like jujitsu. And like um, the triangle is an example. Like you could be stuck there for a while. And if you have the self-talk in the moment to say, like, well, I can breathe, this is good, I can try to do this or that and try to escape, that type of self-talk will carry over into real life. So like you're in a strenuous situation and you can reason your way through it. And when you run into a strenuous situation outside of the mats, you can kind of reason your way through it. You're not going to literally be like, well, this jury duty is nothing compared to the the side control thing we did last night. It's more so like training your problem solving skills, training your ability to remain calm under pressure. And like Grace said, like um, having it as a resource to socialize and um, understand that there are people out there like you living their lives and enjoying the same things you enjoy is really valuable. I mentioned earlier we didn't want it to be a social club, and that's true because we don't want it to be like um, a place where people come to waste their time. But it is a social sport. You absolutely are going to meet people. You're going to be able, anywhere you go, you're going to be able to find a gym. When you go to that gym, odds are people are going to talk the same way you talk and like the same things you like, and you'll be able to experience some new stuff that you can plug into what you already know. It's an infinite journey, and it gave me personally more reasons to want to stay healthy, want to get stronger, just so I can be better at it.
Mm.
So I think it's it's definitely a humbling journey and it's also an empowering journey.
Can I say something actually kind of going in the opposite direction though of why you shouldn't do jujitsu?
Okay.
If your goal is to use jujitsu as a replacement for therapy,
Oh.
please don't please don't come to jujitsu. Jujitsu is therapeutic.
Mhm.
It is healthy for you, for your mind and your body, but don't come to jujitsu thinking that it's going to replace therapy, right? If you need therapy, go to therapy. Don't come to a violent sport thinking that that's going to heal your broken heart or mind or something like that. So please separate those two. Come to jujitsu because it's fun and therapeutic. Go to therapy if you need to actually talk to somebody and get that help you need.
There's the meme of the 40-year-old divorced, like, brown belt dad just
Yeah,
taking out his issues in the gym and all that stuff. I think that's kinda funny, and, my wife will appreciate that you said that because she's a therapist. So that's a good sales
absolutely.
pitch for her. What I was gonna say is I found it interesting that you talked about how it helps you cope with stress, but then also play, and playing kind of as an adult is not really a thing. You don't see adults going to playgrounds or something like that, so this is kind of a safe space to try new things. I find myself laughing a lot in the gym, um, which I think is kind of like people don't understand it. Um, yeah, it's not always fun, sometimes someone's crushing their, breastplate into your nose and it hurts, but then there's some where, it's not so bad and you can laugh and
Just turn
try
your
new
nose.
things.
Just don't be there anymore.
Yeah, just trying a little bit, but along those lines, one of the guests that I had on the podcast, the other jiu-jitsu black belt, Alex Sterner, he's also a strength coach, was talking about, like, aging. And he's saying that he thinks that people become old when they are no longer willing to try new things, when they're not willing to, like, suck at things, and you guys have 2 young kids, and they're kind of gonna be bad at everything because 'cause they're not old enough to be good at anything yet,
Mhm.
but they still, like, explore and smile and have fun and try those things, and you're saying to be able to keep that spirit, jujitsu is good for that, and I agree, I do think that that's, an underrated part of jujitsu, and combat sports in general, but jujitsu I think is a little bit safer for someone to do at 70 than, boxing, for example. And I've also seen some people I saw a video the other day, a guy who, won a jiu-jitsu tournament, he's 70 years old. He would look like he's 50. He's in such great shape mentally as well, so I think that's a good sales pitch for it.
Absolutely.
Some people
Um,
also want to learn how to fight, but they don't want to get hit in the face. And so
well, yeah,
jujitsu is good for
but
that.
then they have what is the slap jiu-jitsu called? Like, they allow slapping?
Combat jujitsu.
Combat jujitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, um, if someone wanted to learn jiu-jitsu as quickly as possible, I know that's probably a question you guys hear a lot, but how should they prioritize it?
Mat time, but more so than mat time, goal oriented mat time. Go into a training session with a goal, right? Don't go into it just being like, well, I'll just do whatever, whatever the coach says. That's I guess I'll do that and then go home and not think about it, right?
Mhm,
You gotta go in with a goal.
mhm,
It could be something big, it could be something small, but have a goal, set a goal for yourself. And just like any sport or hobby, study it outside as well, right? Like we encourage our students to do that all the time. Like don't just do jujitsu for the 1 hour that you come in for the week and then that's all you think about for the rest of the week, right? You don't think about anything jujitsu related, right? When you go home, you can research, you can look up different videos, you can look up different athletes. So I think just that dedicated mat time, goal focused mat time, studying outside, but then also, uh, I'm not going to say the competition is like the way to improve the fastest, but it's just gonna it's just gonna take your focus and really narrow it down into competitive skills, which will develop into being better at jujitsu, right? Because you're focusing on the things that it takes to be good and win in a jujitsu context, right? So like I don't tell people that they have to compete. I don't think that you have to compete unless you want to, but it is good for your development because it gives you a direct comparison in almost a perfect sense because you're going to be facing someone your weight, someone your belt, someone your age. So it's as close to a mirror image of yourself as possible. And so that's a great way to sort of test your progress. So you
mhm,
can use competing almost like a measuring stick to see how you're doing.
mhm,
Um, so I would say that those would be some of the things that you should look for if you want to get good at jiu-jitsu fast.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would go off of what you were saying there about studying outside. Like, there's only so much we can do as your coach. I think Ray and I do a great job, not to pat our own backs. I think we do a great job, but the people who excel the most at jujitsu are the people who clearly have a passion for it outside of the academy. And so, like, a lot of coaches will often say, like, well, don't look at YouTube, don't look at Instagram, don't try to do your things you saw online. But I say find what makes you passionate and what interests you and bring that into the gym. That's part of our culture at our gym is like do whatever makes you interested in it, focus in on that, and we will try to help you with that. So I would say like coming into open mats and stuff is also a really good thing that it's very underrated. A lot of people don't do because
Mhm.
then you can kind of focus in on what you want to do and train with not just the purpose that the coaches are giving you, but train with the purpose that you're giving yourself for that day and say like, well, I want to work on my guard. So whenever I roll, I'm going to make sure I'm playing a bottom position so that I can work on this, that, and the other thing. Um, and then, Ray was saying like competing's really, really good for you. I always tell people that, you don't have to, but you should at least once per belt level if you can. Again, it's not required, but a lot of the times competing actually becomes the thing that someone's passionate about. You
Mhm.
don't know until you try. Sometimes it's not. But regardless, you're going to have results that you can look back on and data that you can look back on that'll help inform your training.
Mhm.
On the topic of competing too, something interesting that I've come to the conclusion of is that competing, in my opinion, is almost the purest example of self-defense that you can get without literally going out and trying to pick a fight in the street, right? So when people come in asking that, they're like, "Man, I don't care about that whole sports stuff. I just want to learn how to defend myself." Sweet, let's sign you up for your first competition, right? Because whether you like it or not, when you're competing, you're standing across the mat from a man whose sole purpose is to hurt you,
Mhm.
and you have to not let them do that. You have to defend yourself and try to hurt them back, right? So like it's the most controlled way to work towards that self-defense aspect. And I get that some people are very poo-poo about sport jujitsu or competition jujitsu. And while that is our focus at our gym, I think that learning how to control that adrenaline dump, learning how to control your nerves leading up to a competition, learning how to be fit and healthy enough for a competition, all of that circles right back to self defense. Because I feel like the self defense jiu-jitsu that you often see is just kind of a scam, just kind of like a weird, watered down karate type of like if they grab your shirt or your hair like this, do this thing. It's like, sure, why not? If you're happy with that. But if you really want to learn how to defend yourself, walk out on a mat across a stranger who wants to hurt you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it kind of comes back
Well,
to what keeps you engaged. And like getting deeper into the sport is going to keep you engaged. You're going to train for longer. You're going to become more physically fit. You're going to become better at dealing with people who also know the sport. And so I always tell people who are looking for self-defense, I'm like, well, who's going to be better at defending themselves? Someone who trains to compete and fight and go against other athletic people who are trained, or someone who has done a few specific techniques and a few specific scenarios now and then, and they revisit those things now and then. The person who trains constantly, or the person who like, I know the one thing I can do with the shirt. Like, obviously, the person who's training to fight is going to be better at defending themselves just by the consequence of that's what it is. It's not in quotation self defense. The best self defense
Mhm.
is fitness, um, understanding when to run away, and understanding how to be calm and
communication skills.
yeah,
Yeah.
and have ideas under
Not
pressure
the
that
right
that
hand.
can help you towards peaceful goal
Mhm.
ultimately. And then when push comes to shove, you can then go to the physical aspect.
I think you see the memes of, like, a guy who wants to defend himself in the streets. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, and he just, like, pulls guard immediately on concrete,
Yeah, I mean, that's
and, you know
fun. That's fun, but
but yeah,
it's
it's just a joke and all, but, like, I would say that, like, a competition blue belt smokes a Steven Seagal, person on the
I
streets with
mean,
all
it's
all the
such a
technique.
goofy notion because, like, I mean,
I
I'm
mean,
a guard puller, right? But
Steven Seagal's pretty big, so, like, it would
Yeah.
have to be a certain size blue belt.
it's a lot of mass.
Yeah, that
But
is,
yeah, like I'm a guard puller, but it's so silly for people to be like, "You're not gonna pull guard in the streets."
yeah, no
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, nope, duh. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't wanna hit the concrete. That would hurt. You know. I'm
Mhm,
just gonna. n- the layman in the streets has no idea what they're doing, right?
mhm,
All they know is like, oh, if I could throw a punch like this, right?
mhm,
So like, just learn a double leg, and then
mhm,
get on top, and there you go. That's pretty much all you need, right? So it's like
Yeah, I mean, like, a
eh,
wrestling class is gonna be
people
your best.
overestimate.
I would say a wrestling class is gonna be your best self-defense because
mhm,
that's
Yeah,
just
people
turning the ground.
overestimate their fighting skills.
It's turning the ground into your weapon, like, even more
yep,
so than jujitsu. I mean, like, if you want to, like, we have a takedowns class. You get really good at takedowns, that's probably the best self-defense in my opinion.
mhm. I was gonna ask, a little bit different, I'm just wrapping up, but, if you could roll with anybody in history, who would it be?
Did like jujitsu related person or just like
Yeah.
any historical
Actually,
figure?
we'll do both.
Oh, I'm gonna
Winston.
choke out Hitler, bro. I'm gonna heel hook him, blow his knee out. Um, so if it's like a
That'll show him.
person, yeah, that'll show him. If it's like a jujitsu person, my my greatest of all time is Rafa Mendez.
Mhm.
So he would be the person that I would love to get completely beat up by. Uh, yeah, and
Seth, do
then
you have
Hitler,
anybody?
I would want to beat up Hitler. That'd be super cool. Uh, my wife's laughing in the other room. I don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah, the Mendez brothers are always a big inspiration for Ray and I. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh,
But it's funny though. I mean, if you say any of the greats would be the number one goal, like rolling with them would probably be like a huge joke for them.
Oh yeah, of
Like,
course. Yeah, I mean, it would just
like
be
that's the
like
thing is
we'd be
like,
like white belts for them, you
yeah,
know?
like anyone you like, there's a good roll is where both people are like kind of evenly matched. It would be cool for us. It would be kind of lame for
mhm,
them. So like,
This is something that I sometimes tell students that, and it's hard for them to really realize it. Like the levels to jujitsu are so insane, right?
mhm,
Because jujitsu is a very small sport, all things considered, right? Like we have the ability to go and train with these all-time great jujitsu athletes. It would be like the equivalent of somebody going and just getting to play a game with Michael Jordan, right? But like you can go to one of these guys' gyms and you can train with them. But the levels are insane because we're black belts, right? There are, competition black belts that would make us look like white belts, right?
mhm,
But then you have that world level competition black belts who make those black belts look like white belts, right? So it's just like the levels are ridiculous because it's such a complicated sport and it's such an amazing system, right? So it would be a privilege to be beaten up by some of these
yeah,
dudes.
that would be the term, not roll with, but just be beaten up by.
Yeah.
Also, I
Rafa
actually
Mendez
appreciate
would do some wizard stuff and just spin around and get on your back.
I appreciate you talking about, like, the levels to jujitsu and all that stuff because, there's this whole, like, alpha male thing on the internet right now, and that just drives me crazy, because you can put any of those, like, pseudo alpha males, that are on TRT in your gym, and they get smoked by a bunch of your students and all that stuff, a lot of people talking big. I think getting beat up is a healthy thing. I think,
Yeah.
letting a punch in the face every now and then makes you a
We're
little
kind of
bit.
the
Yeah.
polar opposite of that spectrum, pun intended,
Yeah.
look at us. We're not we're
Well,
not
yeah,
the
so
most scary looking individuals. So like we're not gonna
yeah.
walk out here like, yeah, bro, we're alphas.
Yeah, but I think if you hold a choke long enough, you could defend yourself and cause some damage, or you could rip anyone's knee out, so the
Yeah.
average person, a lot of stuff,
I
so
like
but yeah,
looking
for sure, yeah.
unassuming, like we don't
Yeah, yeah,
have the giant cauliflower ears, I've had cauliflower and stuff, but I like looking unassuming. I don't want to look intimidating for
mhm,
multiple reasons, right? Because I own a gym, I work with kids, I don't want to look scary.
yeah,
I'm not going to get anything out of that. I'm not going to, and I think there's something to be said with looking unintimidating. And then when you go to roll with them, it's like, oh, dang, this person's actually kind of good, you know?
On the other
Well,
hand, not looking the part and also not being black belts did work against us for a number of years.
Yeah.
We really had to prove ourselves.
yeah.
Got a lot of soy boy accusations.
Yeah, yeah. So like, but like whatever, like it's just fuel for the fire.
No problem with that. I don't care.
It just
Yeah.
pushes us to move ahead. And you know, that's another thing that we learned over the years. Like, just like there will always be haters. Like,
Mhm,
we are a relatively successful gym. Like, you know, there are definitely bigger gyms, more successful gyms, bigger affiliations locally even. But we're relatively successful. 10 years in, like,
yeah.
is a decent landmark. And it for sure upsets certain people, and it can get like nasty sometimes, but that just shows me who not to associate with.
Mhm,
Yeah, just keep your head down and let your results speak for themselves
And
too,
it,
right? I mean, like
and
our
that
results when we go and compete are very good. We got second place just the other day at a competition for our adults. Like, you know, and this is among academies that have or affiliations that have multiple academies. Like they have
mhm,
10, 12 different gyms or just one gym, right? So, I mean, I think we're doing okay.
I mean, it's and that's another good analogy for jujitsu itself. It's just like, well, you lost, even just a rolling class. All that means is just put your head down, work hard, and prove them wrong next time. That's it. Just keep going.
I I was gonna ask, one final thing. If you guys can look back, so when you first started your business to where your business is now, I mean, you guys, I imagine, would be overjoyed with the progress and success you've had. Um, I think that kinda translates to everybody always looks at the next thing, right? So you get your white belt, you want your blue belt, you want your purple, all the stuff. I think people don't look back enough and see the progress they've made. Um, so I first of all, I just wanna say that I think it's really cool what you've done, as an entrepreneur.
Thank you.
10 years in business without it folding is just really cool. Um, and then the last question I was gonna ask you is, if you have any parting pieces of advice. Could be about anything, it doesn't have to be just jujitsu related. What would you like to leave with the listeners?
Um, yeah, I think it kind of echoes back to what we said earlier. Just a line that I really like is keep your head down in victory, keep your head up in defeat. Right? Is just be humble, be professional, be kind, be nice to those around you. We were Matt, you and I were chatting about our buddy Tim, our tattoo artist buddy Tim, and he has this little motto that he has on his stickers, and it's nice people only, right? And
Um,
I think that's a perfect motto. Just surround yourself with nice people.
mhm,
Don't worry about anything else. That's all. Really, that's all you really need.
mhm,
Um, I don't know, just like really general advice is just like be yourself, do what makes you happy, and then just try to make the world better because the world's not great. And if everyone just tries to add a little bit of positivity to it, um, it would go a long way. So that's something I always ask myself whenever I'm making decisions or I'm gonna like do something is like, will this overall be a positive for people around me? If yes, okay, I'll do that. Like I think
you guys certainly have
a lot
achieved
of
that
people
in the
because
gym.
like I said to be yourself and do what you enjoy, but
Mhm,
also ask yourself like, is it a good thing? Like,
mhm,
will it help me? Will it help my family? Will it help my friends around me? And I think that, you know, jujitsu introduces you to a lot of people that think that way, and it's a good thing.
mhm. You guys have done a great job with the culture at the gym, talking about adding positivity. I've never walked in and seen, like, everybody's heads are down or their energy is bad or anything like that, so, you've done a great job, and you guys are still really early in your careers, so I'm excited to see how much more you guys grow,
Thank,
and,
Thank you, man.
I just wanted to thank you for your time, and then for anybody listening, if you guys wanted to plug yourself so that they can, look you up, um, what do you wanna plug?
Yeah, we are Spectrum Jiu Jitsu. We're located in Kearneysville, West Virginia, so it's right in the Eastern Panhandle, right next door to Harper's Ferry, if you're familiar. We, are happy to train with anyone. Come through, say what's up, send us a message on Instagram or on Facebook, or give us a call, and we'd love to link up with you.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thanks.